Assalamualaikum and good evening. You're watching Wacana English edition with me, Adila Azam. And tonight we're going to talk about young and new change makers. Hello, good evening. You're watching Wacana English edition with me, Adila Azam. Taking you through another episode of the show that gives our international and English speaking audience insights into the political, economic, and social landscape of Malaysia. The heat and excitement of the upcoming 15 January election can be felt nationwide. Tomorrow, political parties will be heading to the nomination centres to submit their candidates for the polls. As many Malaysians are counting the days to fulfilling their duties to decide on the future of Malaysia for at least the next 5 years, discussions are ripe on the subject of voter turnout and expectations that we will witness for the first time an unprecedented number of voters at the polls. The 14th Parliament made two amendments to the Constitution that was passed in the Dewan Rakyat. First is to lower the voting age from 21 to 18 years old and the automatic voter registration or AVR. Now, these two accomplishments have led to the addition of 6.23 million new voters, first-time voters in GE15. Now, according to the Election Commission, out of the 6 million, only 1.4 million are undi 18 voters between the age of 18 to 20 years old, and the remaining 4.8 million were registered automatically under the VAR system. Now, between these two voter groups, experts are saying that it is the AVR voters who will decide the fate of contesting political coalitions and determine who will rule or govern the country in at least the next 5 years. Now, the Johor state election recently saw the first time this theory gets tested. AVRs and Undi 18 saw an increase of an additional of 42.9% in the total electorate. But the eventual voter turnout was about the same as the previous election. There has yet to be any available data on how many Undi 18 and AVR voters actually participated in the Johor state election. Now, the stakes are definitely high in GE15, much higher, and it is perhaps too early to say that voter turnout might remain the same. Now, this leads us to a lot of questions on Undi 18 and AVR voters. Are we overhyping their significance? Or are political parties not doing enough to motivate AVR voters to go to the polls? Now, we're excited to bring you another episode that's special for GE15. Now, I have with me three esteemed guests that I can't wait to introduce to you. First, we have Wan Ahmad Nabil Wan Kamarudin, political analyst with KRA Group. And we have Dr. Tan Sengyal, former Kepong MP for 8 terms. And joining us online is Takahara Suiko, songwriter and musician. Welcome to all our guests.
Hello.
Welcome, Taka.
Hi.
Okay, so I'm just going to go straight to the question. I want to start with you, Nabil. How important do you think the youth and AVR voters are? Or do you think that they are, like their significance is overhyped in GE15?
First of all, hi Adila, and thank you Sinar Daily for having me. I just want to reiterate the figures that you mentioned just now. So, 6.23 million new voters. Undi 18 to 20-year-olds, that's 1.39 million.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to look at first-time youth voters as well, we need to take the 21 to 24-year-olds as well because they couldn't vote in the previous election. So from the EC, we know that 4.6 million are aged 21 to 29
Mm-hmm.
voters. If we divide that by 2,
Mm-hmm.
you get 2.3 million.
Mm-hmm.
So for an estimation of the 18 to 24-year-olds, that's around 3.7 million
Mm-hmm.
new voters, right? That constitutes 18% of the total voting population, which is a huge block. But we have to realize also that it's not a homogeneous block.
Mm-hmm.
So the 18 to 20-year-olds have different needs and preferences to 21 to 25-year-olds, 25 to 30-year-olds, and 30-year-olds to 40-year-olds. And although these subgroups, it's easier to survey them, the real wildcard here is the AVR voters, which we do not have data for.
So to you, we're not overhyping. They are significant,
They are
18% of the block.
incredibly significant, yes.
The same with AVR, but it's a bit more complicated because
we have no indication of their political preferences, of the needs that they prioritize, because we don't have data on which specific subgroup they are from.
Yeah.
They could be from
many parts of
21-year-old,
Malaysia, different backgrounds, and all that.
etc. Yeah.
Okay, and we're hoping that this GE, we might get a little bit of data on this AVR once they go out and vote. Is that
Yes.
what you're hoping as well? Okay, I want to go to Dr. Tan because of the large number of youth and first-time voters, just like Nabil mentioned just now, about 18%, which can't be disregarded. Now, DAP, for many years, they have always been quite excellent in outreaching first-time and youth voters, recruiting voters, registration that they do in many parts of the country. Do you think they have done enough to be able to kind of reap the benefit of all this outreach program that they have been doing for years during this GE because of the number of the size of the young and first-time voters?
Yes, I think they've tried their best. They've gone all over the country. But the fact is that to win the election from the 21 million voters, and how many would turn up, we do not know. But if the Johor poll is an indication, then we'll be hoping that all political parties will ask these voters to turn up, in particular the younger ones. And so in this case, I believe for all political parties, it's the social media that's going to play a very important part. But then social media is very powerful for good and also powerful for evil. And so you got to try your best to overcome all the negativities in the social media and try to get these people, not just young voters, because if you look at the whole electorate, you'll find that you still need those people. Say, I think probably there will be 60% of all ages. They are Malays, about 25% Chinese, about 7-8% Indians, and about 7-8% people from Sabah and Sarawak. So this one means that we have got to, not just the young, of course, we have to try our best to get the young voters to turn up, in particular that about 6 million of the 18 to 20 age group to turn up for the first time. But then the important thing is the message for all, not just for the young. If you just go for the young, you may well lose.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, okay, I'm going to get back to you on that because I have another question for you. But before that, I want to go to our friend Takahara. So, are you a first-time voter?
No.
So, you're an experienced voter. But you have friends who are voting for the first time, this GE?
Yes.
So I just want to ask you, but you're still considered young as well. So I want to ask you this question. How do you prepare yourself to make the polling decision or the voting decision this coming GE? Do you Google about current issues, or you ask your parents, or you talk to your friends, or you have like a WhatsApp group? How do young people prepare? Because it's such a big decision to make. It's not an easy decision to make as well, because you know that you're going to determine the fate of the country in the future. So how do you prepare yourself to make this decision?
Just to clarify, I'm very much an outlier, and I do not represent everyone. I represent only myself. So this opinion is strictly personally to me. I think how I prepared myself, like the past election as well, is really to look for someone who can bring change to my community. And if it happens to be of a certain political party, then be it, because we need to change from the bottom up. Um, and as for this time, I think like for us to like really overhaul like the whole system, I guess. Um, we tend to like lean towards certain political party because we want that change, because we're having being betrayed as a I guess apa a typical like a standard Malaysian. I was gonna say marhain. Yeah, like as a marhain, we do not want that to happen again. So we have to like be careful about who we choose. And I think again, because I say I'm an outlier. Like the news that I get is mostly from like Twitter, and it's not really news, but it's more like opinions from people that I observe, like how they respond to things and how they react to things. And then I will like, oh, okay, this person has this and that opinion. I'm like, I value their opinion, so I will consider their opinion, and then put it along with other opinions that I have, and then just like process it together. So I think that's what people like my generation, or also like younger than me, also does. Like we compile all these things that we see on the internet, and just like try to process it into like funnel it into something that we can understand and we can like agree upon. And the consumption itself is what makes us, I wouldn't say knowledgeable, but we've known enough to decide. Again, it's my opinion. I could be wrong about certain things, but yeah, does that make sense?
Yourself to various sources of information and also opinion to get
Yeah.
informed. But I also hear that at the very beginning you mentioned that you also look at candidates, which is what I'm going to go for next as well. I'm going to ask Nabil his opinion about the rise in young candidates that are being fielded this coming GE, regardless of the controversy surrounding it. How do you receive the rate of young candidates being fielded and the quality and the type that's being fielded? What's your like overview?
Okay, so based on the candidate list that has been announced, so if I'm not mistaken, BN has announced a candidate list that comprises 70% of fresh faces,
New faces?
right? And Pakatan Harapan has not revealed its full candidate list yet, but we have some announcements on who will take which constituency and whatnot. But I think with regards to the youth vote and what they look for in terms of representation is not necessarily an age issue. Is more of they want a reset of the values that politicians have, such as accountability and transparency. I think they feel, based on my research, that they have been disillusioned with the recent political turmoil in Malaysia, and well, based off the lineup that they have announced, if, to me, it won't make such an impact because, like I said, they are more candidate focused now. So they,
You mean the youth are more candidate focused?
yes,
or,
the
or
youth are more candidate
okay.
focused.
Regardless, so they don't regard party or coalition as more important. They look at who are being fielded at their constituency.
Yes, like Taka said just now. I think they feel that partisan politics is, because of the recent turmoil, somewhat frustrating, right? But with the introduction of the anti-hopping law, this might aid that. But again, to re-emphasize, they will focus on candidates and the specific policy ideas rather
So the
than
manifestos matter.
yes. The
Aside
manifestos
from the
matter.
manifestos, what else do you think matter? Would the way candidates conduct themselves on social media matter as well? You know, because we
Yeah.
have some controversies happening recently in regards to social media. So do you think that also matters, like Dr. Tan said?
Yes, I think it matters quite immensely because of how much we consume social media. Um, whether we like it or not, all these political narratives and controversies are being filmed constantly on social media and are spread through WhatsApp, not just through these specific social media platforms. So how they conduct themselves matters, how they manage to captivate their followers matters, and how they manage to package their policy ideas in a convenient, concise, and
Manner.
clear manner. Yeah.
That is social media for no social media natives.
Yes.
So Dr. Tan, I saw you smiling a little bit at the word disillusion. Are you disillusioned as well when you see the candidates lineup announcement or like the controversy surrounding candidate lineup? For example, Pakatan dropped some big and popular names. This GE, for example, PKR, Maria Chin dropped Siva Rasa, and then we have DAP Kashturi Pato. BN, a lot of controversial drops as well that we're seeing people joining or forming a new coalition or parties on their own. What's your take on that?
I think politics is a very complicated thing, and there will always be controversy of candidature. Now, those who are selected, obviously they are happy. Those who are not selected, definitely they are not happy, and they will do something.
So that's sort of
But
expected.
that is part of politics. That is part of politics. And then because we are having a system which has been inherited from the British, and that system consists of confrontation, these hostilities, and conflicts. So these are parts of the and parcel of these electoral system, and definitely it is the duty of all political parties to make sure that out of all these confrontation, conflicts, and hostilities, there are certain
Not affecting.
certain values you have to project. Values that, for instance, out of all these things, I believe every these reasonable political leaders would try and impart the idea that this is a multiracial country, multi-religious. Any extremism is just not acceptable. So whatever unhappiness you have, these are the things you don't go into. Don't be so extreme. Don't be so extreme. Because I do not want to see, and I'm quite sure the young voters would not want to see, during election, you would pick up sensational issues, particularly the racial. It's not so easy to incite racial hatred and get some votes. I hope not. Or even religious sensitivities, you can incite it, and maybe you can get some
Out of
vote.
desperation for votes.
Yes, you just want to vote. But the problem is, I notice once these people get elected, they say, let's be united. All the races must be united because that's the only way to rule the country anyway.
So you break them during election and
Yeah.
then you try to unite them.
Oh yes,
afterwards.
that is unacceptable.
Okay, I like that answer. We will go on a short break and we will return.
It's not about age, Because you can have young people who are also corrupt, but I think those who are corrupted should stay out. I think any government that is not one dominant party government, a coalition government, or a kerajaan campuran, kerajaan gabungan, must have some kind of MOU, an internal MOU signed in parliament to make sure that everybody understands what their roles and responsibilities are. It's when you have parties signing secret protocols, secret agreements, secret letters to each other, and then suddenly you see bits and pieces of it. You hear whispers that this meeting they promised this, they promised that. To me, that is something which we should relegate to the history textbooks.
Why we are with DAP is because DAP also emphasizes on the same values, on the issue of integrity, on the issue of good governance, on the issue of accountability, and we agree. Yeah, on these issues, there is no necessity for us to take into consideration the fact that they are Muslims or they are not Muslims. Because what we want is a government that emphasizes on good governance, whether they are Muslims or they are non-Muslims. What's important is that they agree to govern in the way that Islam preaches.
Hello, welcome back to Wacana English Edition with me, Adila Azam. So I'm going to go straight to one of our guests, Takahara. Takahara, you are a observer of this GE15. You're a close observer, as you mentioned earlier in the show. I want to ask you about the young candidates again, but I want to ask you about how, because of all the controversy surrounding young candidates, and some of the ones feel that don't have a lot of political experience, and some don't have a lot of professional experience as well. So, as a voter, how do you evaluate a young candidate? What are the principles or the values or the communication that you look out for when you want to value a young candidate?
Okay, to be honest, I haven't been aware of what the controversy was or is. But I think it really applies to, like, whenever people, like fresh graduates, want to get a new job, and the job qualification always says we need someone with 5 years experience. And how do you get experience if you don't get a job? So I think it also applies to choosing a new candidate who's not sure about, not really not sure, but I think there's a difference between like choosing a person who is aware of the system, compare that to choosing a person who is fresh and is like are willing to sort of like not know, like go in blindly almost. Like, okay, for example, I've never been to this mall. I'm just going to walk around. Like, if a person who goes to a mall that they usually go to, they know the stores that they need to go to, and that's it. They don't, venture around the back door or go into the loading bay. Whereas a person who is like new to this mall, they would just like go everywhere, like each nook and cranny. So I feel like I want that kind of person who is adventurous enough to sort of like explore all the nooks and crannies that we never even thought existed, because the previous person, or the ones that has been used to that are used to the system, to explore and sort of like show us that, hey, there's another way to do this, and there's another way to do that, there's more efficient way to do this and that. So what was the question again? Yeah. Oh, how I see
Candidates to
the candidates.
convince you
Yeah.
to vote for them.
Yeah. Okay. So I think, despite new candidates like not being familiar with like the I guess the job scope, I think why I would lean towards new candidates Of course, I would definitely, unfortunately, I'm being honest, I look at the party first. I filter through party and then I filter through candidates. So after filtering through that, um, why I would prefer a younger candidate is because they go through life around the same time that I do. Like if I choose like a 40-year-old, for example, I'm 32. If I choose a 40-year-old candidate compared to like a 25-year-old, I feel like it's same goes as like the mall analogy, where this person has a different trajectory in life, whereas this 25-year-old person is going to go through life differently because of the technology that keeps on developing over the years, and they are the ones who are supposed to like solidify and sort of like revamp policies to make sure that the future generation can like live through those policies, because a 40-year-old has already gone through being 25-year-old, being 32-year-old. So like I wouldn't be able to relate to the 40-year-old candidate, but even though I cannot relate to the 25-year-old, I know the 25-year-old can at least build a future for the younger generation, and that's what's more important, because
So
climate
relevant.
change, global warming. Yeah.
And because of their young age, you're hoping that they can relate to you and to the electorate of the similar age to a large extent,
Yeah.
and that way they can be a voice that represents your age group in parliament.
Yes.
That's what you mean,
Yes.
correct?
And also I understand, like for example, like my parents wouldn't want to vote for the 25-year-old because that person's young. But like they have to see the future. Like if they want Malaysia to change, we need the 25-year-olds to be part of the system so that they can build and change the gears of the system, because right now the gears are old. It's cranky, it's old, it's rusting. We need new gears. We don't need old ones. So the elder generation have to understand that, have to accept that. And it's difficult for them to change their mindset because that's what they were brought up to believe in, like, oh, this thing works, I'm just going to use this forever. And whereas like the younger ones are like, but when's our turn? We need to use things that are suitable to us. So yeah, I think that's what's important.
That's interesting because makes me want to go to Nabil for the next question, which is the young and also the new candidates. They have a lot to prove to the electorate. From what you have seen so far, um, one, do you think fielding these fresh faces is a good strategy by these political coalitions? Um, and whether fielding young candidates is also a form of strategy for them to win over voters like Taka?
I agree that representation is key for a lot of voters. They need to feel heard and seen, and having a candidate that comes from the same demographic and age bracket will help in identifying that. But I think that what is most important is that these candidates are able to harness the tools at their disposal. So, for instance, social media, as Dr. Tan rightfully mentioned. If you're young but you still don't know how to captivate the audience, then there's uh, there's no
So
point
age is
being.
not a factor to you.
Age is a factor for representation, but at the end of the day, when you go to the ballot box, you look at the candidate manifestos, you look at what the party stands for, you look at the party leaders, and you look at the principles in which you're voting for, because these people that you're voting for will form the national level MPs. They won't be going down to your kawasan to like help fix the tar roads or whatever, but they will be nak menggubal undang-undang, right? And you need to elect people with the right moral fiber so that they will fight for you, fight for your interests, fight for the correct.
Dr. Tan, you want to add on that?
Actually, let's put it this way. A political party, they want to be in government. So if you want to be in government, you must have manifesto that decides on all the policies. For instance, how do you deal with the national debt of Malaysia? It's about 1.42 trillion ringgit. 1.42 trillion ringgit. What's your policy on national debt? That's important. And then you got to get votes. You must let the people know how are you going to create jobs for the people, and about education, higher education. How are you going to manage those who are poor? How do you do it to get them to universities? And these are important issues. Having had this manifesto to deal with the economy, for instance, right now, the Bank Negara has already increased its interest rate to 2.75% now. Following what America has repeatedly done, it's nearly 3.75 to 4% U.S. rate. The reserve, U.S. reserve, national. This Federal Reserve has increased repeatedly, and UK, for instance, has increased to 3%, which is very high for UK. And these are the things that the manifesto has got to deal with. How do you deal with? How does it affect Malaysia?
So to you, it's more about the macro issues
The
than micro issues
no.
for manifestos?
Politics is all local.
So it's
No.
micro as well.
Of course it is. Politics is all local. For the young candidate, they have to know what the constituents want. What are the basic issues of, for instance, in say Taman Muda, for instance, every time because of poor infrastructure, because of poor planning, you got flooding. So flooding is an important issue in that constituency.
Yeah.
So you are a young candidate. The first thing is you look at what are the major issues of that locality.
Do you think, based on your observation so far, political candidates are doing a good job at
No, they haven't
communicating
started.
that?
They haven't started.
Some of them have started. How about you? Do you think, like, based on what you see on social media, have you seen any interesting campaigns or communications done by any?
No, I haven't seen anything exciting except that I hope they'll do it properly because everybody has to learn how to use the digital age, how to promote your view, particularly to young voters. This is where the young voters comes in. How to use the social media to attract these people and talk sensibly.
To get the AVR voters
That
to
is correct.
come to the polls.
You got to do that. You got to do that. But you must look at the local issues.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can't win.
How about you, Nabil? Have you seen any interesting manifestos or communication so far?
Like
What Dr. Tan said?
Like Dr. Tan said, so far not yet because nomination period.
Only AMK has launched their manifesto, right?
Yes.
Angkatan Muda.
But even then, now most of what I see on social media is just posturing.
A lot of campaign trail, is it?
Yes. A lot of announcement of where I'll be contesting, that kind of thing. So
And schedules. I see some candidates posting their schedules where they're going to have breakfast for 4 hours. Okay, I'm just kidding. Let's go to Takahara. So, Takahara, I want to ask you about, what are the latest trends that you see that people, especially young voters, subscribe to when it comes to becoming more politically knowledgeable? Because, for example, a lot of TikTok users find that TikTok is a medium of knowledge as well, as a medium of entertainment, meaning they can get in a way educated via TikTok, whether it's for school or whether to know social issues or political issues. Do you like identify with a certain platform where you get your information from?
I think my input comes from, yes, it comes from TikTok and Twitter and sometimes Instagram, and it's more like it's not directly from the candidates themselves. It's more like similarities, or yeah, similarities between, like, what, for example, we see it on TikTok, like eat the rich, and then we see someone in Malaysia that has the same sentiment as the TikTok video, and we just like put like parallels, and if we resonate with this person, I'm like, oh, this person would like to eat the rich as well, and I like this person I would like this person to represent my constituency. um it's I think that's how we've been. Again, I'm an outlier, it's my personal opinion, but I think that's how I personally have been, like seeing and trying to like find parallels between like the sentiments that I agree with on TikTok, and finding the real life person that can definitely like do their job when I elect them during the election. Yeah.
To you and you follow them. So some of the platforms that you've identified to be quite like the ones that you follow are TikTok and Twitter, is it?
Yes.
Twitter, where I also see quite a lot of candidates posting. I haven't seen TikTok, but I've seen quite a lot on Twitter, especially. But at the same time, social media also do not represent like the whole of Malaysia as well. There are
Yeah.
certain demographics that do not spend as much time on social media
Yeah.
as before, or different platforms of social media. You have, Facebook demographic. So I do wanna go a bit into I do wanna go a bit into the strategy with Nabil when it comes to social media. What you have observed so far, because not many have launched their manifesto. They've only launched their candidate. Do you think that right now conversation on social media is a lot too focused on personal or unpleasant details of certain candidates as a strategy?
I think that first you need to capture the attention,
Mhm.
and by doing that, you not necessarily need to talk about your policy ideas or your narrative, but first you need to achieve that virality for you to be noticed, for people to talk about you, and then you can make use of the algorithm
Mhm.
for more of your content to be pushed out to these users, right? So, for example, TikTok. If you scroll your FYP, there might be some content that you might not agree with, but you spend a longer time looking at because your attention is captured,
Mm.
and because of that, um, they will push more content from that specific user to your page, and from then they can communicate their policy ideas
Mm.
and their narratives
So
once
even
they
when
get
it's
that.
controversial, they just have to do it because they need to capture attention, right? That's
Yes.
that's also what you're saying. So Dr. Tan, just now you mentioned that we run a risk of, breaking apart the society or creating a rift between races because of our desire to
Yeah,
win.
yeah, yeah. Actually, especially those new candidates, the young ones, let's make it a point because you got to decide whether you love the country and you love the society. If you love the country, you love the society. You want to make the society, the country better. You want unity. You want progress. Huh? And you want harmony in the society, which you want. Huh? Then please don't do those things, the extreme things, and try to incite racial hatred and religious unhappiness. Please don't do those things. And it is important for all candidates, including the young one. Yeah, I say again and again, and every time when I did campaigning, actually I do not touch on anything too sensitive. Huh? I'll always telling them that if you vote for me, I will speak out for you in Parliament
Because that's why
loud
you
and
vote
clear.
for an MP
That's
in the
right.
first place, right?
Yeah,
You
yes.
want a representation.
You want a representation. You want them to speak out for you in Parliament and State Assembly, whether it's on national or local
State.
issues. That's what you want them to do. And when you are a candidate, you're trying to do those things. And please, if you love your country, you love your society, don't go extreme. Sensitive issues, please avoid.
Okay.
To clarify, Dr. Tan, I wasn't advocating for candidates to incite anything. I was mainly talking about maybe, for example, doing a TikTok dance. So that's what I mean by
To aim for virality, but in a safe,
and entertaining manner rather
okay,
than
safe and entertaining manner. Okay, so that's a good way to kind of wrap up our second block, and we'll go for a short break, and we'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Mohaini Mahmood, and I'm the co-founder of Kido Care. It's natural that people fear what they don't know. You know, back then in 2018, when we first started, we were an online babysitting platform. And it was something so unfamiliar to most people. People are so used to the old model of engaging babysitters, pengasuh, you know. People were used to the idea of a live-in maid, a live-in helper, someone who lives in your household to take care of your children. In 2018, we came up with the idea of, you know, a stranger, another woman coming to your house to take care of your children just for a few hours. And then after the service is done, that person leaves.
My name is Renuka. I'm a working mom. I run a training and coaching business, and I've been a long-term user of Kido Care. And I think I'm also like strongly recommending my friends who are also in the same boat as I am, like, you know, business owners who really don't have time. I think this is a very good alternative.
Hello, welcome back to Wacana English Edition with me, Adila Azam. So things got a little bit heated up, so we're very excited to expand the discussion further into, how far should a candidate or a political coalition or a party go to win over voters, and how there are just certain limits that they cannot cross. Dr. Tan, you wanted to expand on that just now.
Systems that we have, you see people blacken the opponents, say bad things about them, whether they have the truth or not, they have evidence or not, slightest suggestion, they will make a story out of it so that it becomes so attractive for listeners, for viewers, for the electorate, so that you blacken them so much that that they won't get elected. And that is seen most obvious in the United States. To try and do a thing like that. Actually, in this country, we are not America. Let's not go so far. If you don't have evidence, please do not.
We're seeing quite a lot of, on the topic of social media as well, I just want to touch a little bit. We're seeing quite a lot of kind of grey news. When I say grey news, is that you can't verify whether they're 100% false news yet, but there's a lot of rumors flying around. For example, the allegedly fake SDs signed by BN candidates, and how Shahril Hamdan had to kind of go on social media to clarify those issues. So this is still quite early in the election period. They haven't officially started campaigning, because they're just gonna nominate tomorrow. But we are seeing that it's starting to
Of course it
happen,
would.
and fake news is starting to
They
become
will
quite
do
a
that. They
problem.
will do that.
Mm.
In fact, this is even worse with social media because so easy.
Yep.
Within a few seconds, you can do a
Create
thing like
something
that.
false, right?
That is correct.
Mhm.
But for instance, you say somebody is corrupted. Now, it's not so easy to get the evidence.
Mhm.
Sometimes you go through the court, you think you have evidence, but it's difficult to prove. It goes for years. Huh? But I always maintain that if any candidate come up with anything sensational with no evidence, no proof, the electorate should not vote for him or her.
Okay, so I say, so I'm not going to mention any name, but some people have been doing a lot of press conferences lately, right? For example, so Nabil, do you see this as a worrying trend coming into GE? We still have a couple of weeks left. Are you expecting to see more kind of mudslinging type of tactics happening, more fake news or controversial takes or exposes, alleged exposes being done? Do you anticipate that? Or are people going to go the mighty way, which is manifesto policy driven?
I definitely foresee more mudslinging. Is the nature of the game nowadays. With the digital space, anything can be doctored, anything can be fabricated, and there is no paper trail, right? So anyone can just come up with anything. But we as responsible voters, we need to verify and check ourselves whether this could be misinformation or not before spreading it, right? And that's the worry with social media platforms. It makes us become more polarized, which is unhealthy for democracy, I feel.
Okay, I want to go to Takahara because Nabil mentioned that voters need to be more responsible by taking the initiative to check what's going on social media, to check whether there are fake news that is being spread about certain candidates or certain political parties, and to be a bit more vigilant, because this is going to happen quite common and quite often during the GE cycle in the next couple of weeks. Takahara, do you find this mudslinging tactic by political parties and individuals during GE to be overwhelming as someone who uses social media?
Definitely, because there was a time when I was just like writing songs based on what Twitter is mad about on that day. And then there's always like a smoke screen. And they always there are two news that comes in tandem. The first one is the real news. And the second one is the smoke screen to sort of like cover up the first news. That's what I noticed, at least like last year or last 2 years when I was like doing, the daily songs. And since that point on, I just decided to, instead of, accepting a news, like straightforward, just accepting the news, I would just like sit back and watch things unfold first. So just like there's a news that comes up today, I'll wait tomorrow and see what else comes up. And because like I think they know how social media works, because it's very fast and people get mad easily. Like they see one thing, they get mad, they see the other thing and they get like even madder then, and then they immediately forget about the first thing, because that's what I experience as, a person who's quite controversial on the internet. So people forget in a few days. So it's best to just like sit back and consume things slowly, because you can just swipe things and just get mad every hour. But you gotta stop. We gotta stop. Like just like stop, take a breath, take a breather, and just, okay, there's the news. Should I get mad at this? Let's think about it for a day, and then we'll see how it unfolds. So that's my approach for now. I'm certain that it's not everyone's approach, because it has been it's difficult to get out of that, psychological thing with social media, because it's really psychological, where you're used to consuming everything all the time, and for you to like take a step back and consume things one by one is gonna take a lot of effort, and I don't think people are willing or can or are able to do that within the next like few weeks. But who knows.
Do you think people should, Taka, do you think people should stay off social media for the next couple of weeks, or maybe limit their consumption of social media and instead, get news or updates from official news sites instead?
It's very difficult to like stay off of social media, again, because of the norm. Like, we're so used to doing it every day, and then suddenly, like, within the next 2 weeks, we have to like limit the consumption. I mean, if you're used to like fasting, of course we can do that, but not everyone would do it. And there's also like the issue where like some news platforms that are biased towards certain sentiments, and I guess based on my experience, I'm like, yeah, I trust, unfortunately, I trust Twitter more than I trust news. Even though news, like, they process things, like I said, like slowly compared to social media. But I guess the difference would be like in opinions. Like, social media has opinions attached to the news, whereas the news is literally just from one outlet, and that opinion is like, and you can also see like how the opinions unfold, like how people like share their opinions. I think what I guess people should do is to try to consume opinions of like different completely different opinions, and just like, okay, which one should I choose, like which one do I resonate with? Because yeah, like with news, like you really cannot do that. Like, there's no other people who says like, oh, I have a differing opinion, because news is news. Like, it's there, it's sort of like solidified already. Whereas Twitter or TikTok comments, even, it's very fluid, and it's still fluid, and you can always keep on changing your opinions almost like every time you see new information. And but it's not being lalang. It's not being lalang at all. It's just, when you consume, when you, I guess, when you receive new information, and the information makes more sense than previous information, of course you would choose the new information. So it's not about being lalang, it's about being informed, I guess, but through opinions.
It's about being objective by following contrasting accounts or contrasting opinions. And I find it interesting
Yes.
that Taka mentioned that, the way that she mentioned how people form opinions or get or have their opinion or perception change based on, what they read in the comments section, not only the content itself. Um, so this also makes it a lot more complicated for political parties and candidates who want to, share their manifesto or what they stand for in GE. But I want to touch a bit because we also talk about issues just now. But I want to touch a bit and expand more on issues affecting the electorate, especially the youth electorate that Nabil mentioned just now. What are some of the issues that you think they care about? Dr. Tan, you mentioned briefly issues of macro and micro. Micro that is specific to the area, and macro more like on the economy, the FDI, the GDP, and all that. How about you, Nabil? Do you have any like more specific issues that the young electorate, rural and urban, care about, or do they like care about different things?
Interestingly, you would assume that younger voters are more idealistic. They think more big picture, more macro. But based on our research, we found that the number one issue that they prioritize is bread and butter issues.
What are they?
So, for example, increase in prices of food, increase in energy prices, the rise in interest rates because of the Fed hikes, and how to stop the depreciation of the ringgit against the dollar, stuff like that. They want to know how these candidates can mitigate the risks that come from these external environments and how they can actually have workable policy ideas to
Solutions.
protect them next year, because they know that next year will be
Harder than this year.
economically uncertain for them. So a lot of them actually, according to the Department of Statistics, 15 to 24-year-olds that are employed amount to 2.54 million. So these youths, they're not just studying. They, after they graduate from high school, they start working immediately. They become breadwinners for their family. So interestingly, they focus more on bread and butter issues.
How many million just now? 15 to 24-year-olds.
Yes, 2.54 million. If I'm not mistaken.
2.54 million.
2.46 million. sorry.
2.46 million.
Yeah.
And then you also have what you mentioned just now. In that also, the above 18, they belong to the 18% of the electorate that you mentioned just now.
Yep.
When you say about bread and butter issues, some of them are, very, very macro. But what about things like, this is also slightly macro, but domesticated slightly, for example, issues concerning job opportunities or quality job opportunities, or education opportunities to further their studies. Now that the economic uncertainty that is happening globally, it's going to be maybe harder to send Malaysians overseas to study. So
that's the second issue they look out for, actually. So despite unemployment, we estimate that it would improve next year, according to estimations by the Ministry of Finance and Bank Negara. But at the same time, underemployment is going to lessen, but it will still be at a high level. Yeah. So the youth are looking out for these key insights as to, say, if they were to lose their jobs, or if they were to enter the workforce, can they get a job that matches their skill level? Because a lot of the youth have
mismatched skills.
Yeah, they have tertiary education, and
so are you saying they are looking for a more specific, workable and tactical manifestos? Because manifestos tend to be vague. We will address the increasing price of goods. We will address the shortage of chicken supply, for example. But that doesn't say much. It just points out, okay, there's an issue, we're going to address it. But it didn't say what they're going to do to address it. So are you saying that young voters are looking at the do, the how, instead of just the what?
yes, exactly. Because like we mentioned just now, they're looking at the specific candidates. And because they don't have that institutional memory of past elections, of past politicians, of past narratives, they look at what the candidate can offer them right now.
So what are the other issues? So job opportunities is number 2. Number 1 is like economy, fiscal. Number 3, what are the other issues that young voters really care about, that you want to just point out? Do they, for example, we see the rise of mental health issues affecting Malaysian population. The recent happiness survey also showed that a lot of states, a lot of communities and population, especially among the young, reportedly feeling less happy, less satisfied with their life because of the economic and socioeconomic difficulties. Mental health issue. Dr. Tan, do you expect to see, how important do you see candidates or even political parties who want to address these issues are not like economic issues, but they are a consequence of economic issues or neglect, mental health, social issues, broken families. Do you want to see these issues being brought up?
Obviously, these are important issues. These are important issues. mental health problem is a big problem, and so far the government or whoever will be the government will have to look into this very seriously. How do we improve the service to deal with these mental issues, because it's a big issue.
Yep.
And these are the things that we would hope that the manifesto will contain some of these things. But let me be very clear: the politics is local. Having said that, we must have good manifesto, but politics is basically local.
Because you're an 8-term MP,
Yeah.
so
It
you
is
know.
Yeah. It's basically local. And then the youngsters of each area. Now, let's be very honest. You see, still talking so much about rural areas, urban areas. 70% or even more than that of the population of Malaysia, for another, are in town. You see, all you have to look at during the festive occasion, whether Hari Raya or Chinese New Year or Deepavali or whatever it is,
How empty the roads are.
Yeah. Because over 70% of the people are in town, in
Okay.
cities.
Betul.
So these are the thing. These are the thing. So let's not forget that how do we solve this problem? How do these candidates get elected? They have got to look into these things.
Okay, I wanted to ask you, but you already answered my question before I asked, which is, I wanted you to like share a message or an advice as someone who has served Kepong for 8 terms. What new and young candidates, if let's say they get chosen, what should they prepare themselves for? But you already said that they should focus on local issues.
They should local issue, but don't forget the major issues, the macro, the national issues. Those you got to do it, because after all, why are you an MP? You know, an MP speaks for the people of the whole nation. You know, he's not speaking for that constituency
Only.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's when he swears for the nation. He doesn't swear for the
Only the community or the
no, never do that. Never do that. The same applies to state assembly person. He doesn't stare for his constituency. He swear for the whole state. That's
Okay.
what he did.
Yep.
And that's what he does, and that's what he or she will do.
Yep.
But let me be very clear. These issues of women. Now, how do you get more
Women as candidates.
Yeah, that is the issues that we got to address.
Yes. Okay. So I find that very interesting, because I'm also going to ask Nabil and Taka your manifesto wish list, or what you wish the next elected government would address. What are the issues that are close to your heart? So I'm going to start with Taka, and then I'm going to end the session with Nabil. Taka, what are some of the issues that you want the next government to address, or any party that say they're going to fight for these issues, they're going to get your vote? What are the...
Ooh, that's a difficult one. You put me in the spot. But I always, in my head, I always prioritize education, and how we've been, like, how education is very important, because that's how you build character, that's how you build people. I didn't used to believe in my teachers when they say, oh, we're building the future. Now I do. So I think just like, exposing students to issues of the country. I think that's important. People will say, don't expose them to political things. You're too young. I feel like they need to know like what's going on in the country, so that when they grow up, they know exactly what to do and who to vote for, and what to be aware of, what issues. Yeah, my number one manifesto is literally education, because that's how I think you change mindsets, and changing mindset is like very, very important. as much as economy is important, I think changing mindset is my priority, definitely, because it takes time. It takes a lot more time to change mindset than it is to revamp the economy, as weird as that sounds. Because economies, they involve policies, whereas mindsets, it involves like generations of building and developing.
Okay, so
That's me.
improving the syllabus, the education syllabus is what's important to Taka. So I'm going to go to Nabil because Dr. Tan mentioned just now, female candidates, socioeconomic issues. So Nabil, what are the issues that you want to see being highlighted in the manifesto? And to you, okay, the party that want to fight for these issues are the ones that that will get your vote, for example.
Okay, so firstly, I feel like the party needs to be, or the manifesto needs to be pragmatic. So they should address the needs of the many as efficiently as possible. But what I would like to advocate for right now is for more political education to be formalized and institutionalized in the education system. As far as I know, in the sejarah textbook, there's 2 chapters which are dedicated to the separation of powers and the responsibilities of an MP and the constitution. But there's little or no mention of what a manifesto is, what a political narrative is, and how a typical MP will profile
Their responsibilities,
Yes.
what is expected of them.
what is expected of them.
I'm sure they have the differences between the one rakyat and the one
Yes, they do have that, but it's more of
very
to-
general.
to understand what it means to be a voter and what it means to elect these people into the national.
And
level
would you agree if I say that this might be one of the key to address the disillusion or the low motivation voters, the AVRs who never bother to register all this while? Maybe it's because they don't have enough political or empowering education on their rights.
Because also previously in schools, talking about politics was looked down on. You don't want to be political in the classroom. A lot of social activists and NGOs are pushing for political education to be implemented in the education system. But the common pushback is that we don't want to be political in the classroom. But all these details can be included in the syllabus without it being political.
Without it being partisan, right?
Without it being partisan, yes, correct.
Okay, thank you so much, Wan Ahmad Nabil, Wan Kamarudin, analyst KRA Group, Dr. Tan Siang Yao, former MP of Kepong for 8 terms, and Takahara Suiko, songwriter and musician, joining us from her home. Thank you so much to our audience for watching Wacana English Edition with me, Adila Azam. We will be back every week, and stay tuned to Sinar Daily for the latest news on GE15. Stay tuned to and subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow our social media platform. Signing off for tonight. Thank you for watching.